All right. So really excited to introduce our next panel that I'll be moderating. We're going to be talking about building academic and community partnerships to advance fire service cancer control plan. So we're going to sit and have a panel discussion with three amazing women who have really taken the initiative in their academic and community institutions to bring firefighter cancer research. And we've already gotten a few questions in the audience about, from academia saying, how would we get this started in our area? So these are the questions we're gonna ask. So similar to how we had our panel yesterday with the firefighters of how they got it started, we're gonna switch gears a little bit and ask our women in academia, how they got it started and how they've collaborated. So I'll welcome to the stage Dr. Amelie Ramirez, who is a leading researcher in cancer and chronic disease health disparities, serving as chair and professor of population health sciences at UT Health San Antonio. Over the past 30 years, she has directed more than 100 research programs aimed at reducing health disparities affecting Latinos and other underserved populations, focusing on areas such as cancer prevention, clinical trial recruitment, and obesity prevention. Dr. Ramirez has authored numerous peer-reviewed articles, holds leadership positions in public health organizations, and is widely recognized for her contributions to improving Latino health and advancing diversity in medicine and public health. Joining her on stage is Dr. Rachelle Hamblin, who is a board-certified family medicine physician with an MD and MPH from UT Health San Antonio, and currently works at Health by Design's Retiree Police and Firefighter Clinic. Passionate about firefighter health, she volunteers with the San Antonio Fire Department, where she contributes to the SAFD Occupational Cancer Committee and collaborates on firefighter cancer prevention research. Dr. Hamblin advocates for occupational cancer prevention at local, state, and national levels, teaches at the Fire Training Academy, and leads wellness screenings, all while continuing to ride out with SAFD. Lastly, joining us is Dr. Heather Stapelton, is a professor in environmental chemist and exposure scientist at Duke University's Nicholas School of the Environment, specializing in identifying harmful chemicals in building materials and consumer products. Her research focuses on human exposure, particularly among vulnerable populations like pregnant women, children, and firefighters, with an emphasis on thyroid disease and cancer. She currently serves as the director of the Duke Superfund Research Center and the North Carolina Firefighter Cancer Cohort Study. Please welcome them to the stage. Okay, so we're going to start with just to understand a little bit of the landscape. Firefighters, we know are at a higher risk for cancer. So coming from an academic institution, how can academic institutions contribute to cancer prevention and control efforts in the fire service?
Great. Well, thank you for that question. Thank you very much, Dr. Solle, for that question. Already our cancer centers are involved in cancer prevention research, but one of the things that I've learned from this partnership, and I think was mentioned by Chief Quinn and Chief Lead, that the general public really doesn't understand what our first responders, firefighters go through and what danger they have been exposed to. And so through our partnership with the San Antonio Fire Department and through Dr. Hamblin, she really brought to our attention the importance of looking at this issue. And so it falls really nicely within our domain of what we should be doing, but it took this catalyst. And then, with our partnership with Sylvester Cancer Center, this is, just a prime opportunity for us to get involved.
Dr. Hamblin, can you talk a little bit about how this all got started?
Well, thank you so much again for being here. And so how I think this got started, I think of it in 4 different phases. So our Occupational Cancer Committee, many of whom are sitting here, we got started back in 2015. And one of the main reasons why was our friend and fellow firefighter, Woody Woodcock, who got diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia, and unfortunately he passed away. And that was our whys. We don't want our friends and our family and our fellow brothers and sisters dying, so we decided to do something about it. And we formed this cancer committee and we have not looked back. So I think of it as 4 different phases, and the first phase is really setting the stage, doing your homework. So you gotta go on a listening tour, you gotta ask your guys and gals, you gotta go down to the field, ask them, what can I do to better help you? What can I do to help you as a doc? And listening to them. And then you'll hear, it's cancer prevention. We're scared, we don't know what to do. We want a partnership with academia, is what our firefighters told us. So we set about building that. And so the second stage was really like setting the stage, that preparation, doing our literature review, doing our homework, rotate with Miami, spending 2 weeks of my personal time learning from y'all, which is awesome. Spending time in Orlando with Jeff Bickler, learning the legal side of things, really nailing down on what's the problem, building off the shoulders of giants. And next, we dedicated a couple years to really planning. So success is 90% planning and 10% execution. We planned and prioritized our goals, and we set them. We said, we need to know our key players, who's our stakeholders, what do we want to accomplish, what's our why, how do we make it personal? And then from there, we set about to make those relationships and really network, and that's how we continue to meet Mays Cancer Center, UT Health, University of Miami, and we asked for help. And you guys provided that. And so that really was the stage for how do we make these amazing things happen, like this memorandum of understanding we'll talk more about. How do we make our wellness fair? So a lot of process, but amazing results.
Great, thank you. Dr. Stapleton, so you come from a little bit of a different background, more of a basic scientist background. Can you talk about how you navigated your way and created partnerships with the fire service?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me here. So I'm an environmental chemist, actually by training, but consider myself an exposure scientist. And prior to 2018, I had actually not interacted with any of the fire service members, and most of our research did focus on children's and pregnant women. But we had done a lot of research looking at exposure to hazardous chemicals like flame retardant chemicals and combustion byproducts and PFAS, and particularly looking at their interactions with thyroid disease and thyroid cancer. And as such, I had a appointment at our Duke Cancer Institute. I was a faculty member there. I am a faculty member there. And in 2018, it was the city of Durham firefighters that actually reached out to the Duke Cancer Institute, and they asked for a meeting. They asked the director of the Cancer Institute if we have a meeting just to learn more about cancer screenings, resources that were available, research that could be supported. Obviously, there was a growing awareness of some of these issues, and obviously firefighters have lots of questions. What can we do? So I was invited to attend that meeting, and I will never forget it because it has changed the course of almost everything we do now. And it was, we listened to them. We had lots of honest conversations. What are the questions that you really want to answer? What do you want to know most? A lot of it did focus on cancer screening, but there were a lot of questions about my exposure. I really want to know what I'm exposed to when I go to these fires. And I said, well, that's something we could probably help you with. And there was a lot of questions about asbestos. And asbestos is a mineral. It's not like a blood test we can do and measure that. It's very hard. I said, but we could do this. We actually have these really great wearable samplers, these wristbands. We can measure a couple hundred chemicals at a time. Should we use these and look at your exposures on and off duty just to have a better sense of what's going on? And it was really one firefighter in particular that was really interested and met with me several times, and we were able to develop a research project that ended up being funded by the Cancer Institute. And it took time, it takes trust, it takes a lot of open conversations, but since then the whole thing has just grown organically like it often does. And today we actually have funding from the state of North Carolina to recruit 1,000 firefighters across the state into a study where we're helping to assess their exposure to lots of different chemicals and try to understand what activities, what sources are really driving these. So just starting with a conversation can make a big difference.
That's amazing, congratulations. Can you guys talk about some of the challenges that you've encountered in creating these relationships, either from the academic side or from working with the community?
I think that some of the challenges from the academic side, and one of your speakers addressed it yesterday, is just resources. Everyone is overextended, but what we found so beautiful is the passion, that we all have the passion to try to make lives better and to really improve the health of not only all our community, but our community members that are, facing cancer specifically because of their occupation. So it was really finding that time, facilitating the meetings, and getting the right and key players at the right place, you know, and then just sitting and prioritizing what could we really work on together to feel like we've accomplished something. So it takes time, as you know, Dr. Hamblin just mentioned. It doesn't happen overnight, but the willingness and the trust among the different groups, I think, is extremely important.
From the healthcare side of things, I think there's two big challenges that I see, particularly for our firefighters in this occupational cancer. One is just lack of awareness. I know we talked a lot about awareness and raising awareness, and there is a lack of awareness on the healthcare side. We actually did a survey at our last health fair where we did a kind of needs assessment and quiz, and so we did a test on how much do you know about firefighter cancer, and the result was pretty dismal. The average grade was 38%. The only 3 people who passed were the 3 folks from Miami who took the test. So, shocker there. So that was really eye-opening. But the other half of our survey was, well, do you want to learn more? And the result was an astounding yes. So our docs and our healthcare community, they want to learn more. And when they get to meet y'all, they fall in love. And when you bring them out to the academy and they go up in the apparatus and they put on that bunker gear, maybe you shouldn't do that anymore, but the clean bunker gear, then they fall in love with y'all. They get to know you, and they're just, that passion sparks. And so really raising awareness. And as part of that, working with Maze and UT Health and with SAFD is we're going to go out, we're going to start educating primary care physicians, the healthcare providers on what the unique occupational needs of cancer in the fire service are. That's one of our goals this year and with our memorandum of understanding. The second thing I think is with the partnership with academia and with the community is we have fantastic folks that are motivated to help our firefighters. But we get into the nitty-gritty of the system, when you start ordering those diagnostic tests, those screening tests, is getting coverage and also getting the healthcare industry and insurance really to recognize that this is a problem, because I can say, okay, I know colon cancer starts in the 30s in firefighters, but we see the guidelines are age 45. How do you get that extra 15 years of coverage? And so that's going to be a challenge that we will continue to work and discuss, how in addition to healthcare and academia, we can also bring insurance into the picture, bring in those compensators into the pictures and the payers, and really help to fully cover and screen our firefighters.
That's great. Dr. Stapelton, I have a question related to partnering with other people, either within your institution or other institutions. This is something that came from the audience. You know, someone said, well, I'm only in one department. How, you know, and I'm here watching this, and, you know, how, you know, vast and expansive the program is. But, you know, if I'm in one department, how do I reach out? How do I start something? How do I get other people's interests? Is that something that you've done?
Yeah, I mean, it just takes the willingness to reach out and have a conversation sometimes. If you're at a fire department, you could look and see if there's a local university around you, or particularly one that has a cancer institute. Just reach out. And I think Jeff Pauly said this yesterday. Sometimes it just takes time to find the right person, but be patient. Keep asking questions. Talk to lots of people, attend these meetings. I'm always happy to talk to folks and see if I can connect them with other researchers or assist them ourselves with some of the ongoing programs that we have. Because we have a lot of work going on now in North Carolina, but I am collaborating with people all over the country in wildland studies, WUI studies, all kinds of different research projects focusing on turnout gear, et cetera. But one thing I just also want to say is, and it took me a while to realize this as I worked with some of the firefighters in our community, over time, I was like, I wanted them to be partners with this. It has to be bi-directional. You know, we don't want the scientists making all the decisions. It's really important that the firefighters are engaged in developing these questions and helping us as well. And even though I have that PhD at the end of the name, that just means I'm trained in a special way. It doesn't mean I'm any different than anybody else. Because I sometimes notice that I think some firefighters are afraid to ask some questions because they don't want to seem like they don't know what they're talking about, or you know, they worry that they had a poor science grade in high school, so they shouldn't be having a conversation. Like, don't let that stop you. There are no bad questions. As part of our study, we were measuring PFAS in blood and returning results back to each firefighter in our project. And so we had this report we shared with every individual firefighter. And we were talking to some of them, we're like, give us some feedback. What's easy to understand, what's not easy to understand. And I remember one of the firefighters saying, I'm still trying to figure out what Gen X is, right? Which was actually a type of PFAS. And I was like, okay, this is helpful, great. And we backtracked and we kind of walked through it. But it has to be a true partnership. So please don't ever be afraid to ask questions.
I'd just like to build on that. It's really a true relationship. You know what the questions are better than us sometimes as the researchers, right? And so, or bringing up things that you've seen and observed and say, well, why is that happening? And just, your willingness to share those questions with us, and then we can try to find the right people who are interested in that similar question to start a new partnership and have it grow.
Excellent advice. Before we wrap up with my questions, anyone in the audience have any questions? All right, so if you guys could offer one key takeaway from this discussion for our firefighter partners and other organizations and other academic institutions, what would some of those be?
What I would say is don't reinvent the wheel. I think what we've learned from this tri-partnership with the University of Miami, the San Antonio Fire Department, and our Mays Cancer Center is that there's a lot that has been developed. You have really moved the field. And so in research, we look at something now called implementation science. So how can we take some of the best things that have been developed already, adapt them to your community so that we can further extend the work that needs to be done versus replicating and collecting the same data, but how can we push things forward to truly accomplish those goals that you want, to change policy? I love the words that Chief Quinn used, research, collaboration, and education. Even our community still does not participate in preventative care practices, right? And so the firefighters are part of that community. How can we all work together to be good role models for all our citizens?
Well, I think the two main things is, one, like everybody's been saying, know your why, make it personal, and share that why. This is the only way to do it, is by making it personal, by meeting each person, by having them personally invest in. My lieutenant always told me, hearts and minds. If you earn their hearts, their minds will follow. That's what you got to do. Just be yourselves and invite that community in. It's about building that trust and building those personal relationships. Being an outsider. But when you get to know your guys and gals, and if you're coming in, say, from academia or from healthcare, you really got to get to know your fire department. Learn what it means to be a firefighter. Spend time with them. Then you earn that trust. Then you can build that relationship and be in that unique position to translate the science and the medicine over to the fire service. Because without that, without being one of them, without knowing them, we're not going to go anywhere. So it's really, you got to form that trust and that partnership. And then second, I would just say, listen. You have to learn how to follow before you can learn how to lead. And so when you listen, observe, start off by that. You'll gain so much. And just when you hear your firefighters expressing their concerns to you, just like Miami has done, UT Health has done, when you listen, you earn that trust and you'll learn so much more and you'll be set up for success and you won't have to reinvent that wheel. So just know your why, invite them in, and you'll have a great path forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything that has been said. Find someone to talk to, be patient, ask lots of questions. Scientists, we love to talk about our research. We get caught up in our acronyms and everything. One thing I was really impressed with at this meeting is how it's a mixture of firefighters and scientists at the same meeting, which never happens typically for me. It's a great opportunity for us to have conversations, whether it's in here or out by the coffee. But the firefighters, you guys are great presenters. You really engage the audience, And scientists, we get all caught up in our acronyms or up here. So you really inspire me as well to be a better scientist, because this is my third year here. I love this meeting because I get to engage with all of you. You all make me laugh, you make me cry, but I always leave a better scientist because I've learned something from you, right? So help us to help you and build that better partnership. But please don't ever be afraid to ask questions, too.
Thank you all. This was amazing.
Yeah.